Hi, Allison.
Hello. How are you, Latané? So good to see you.
Oh
And
my
also,
God.
and also so good to be part of this event. My name is Alison Murdock. I am the founder and chief marketer at Trusted CMO, and it is my pleasure to welcome all of you to this kickoff session um, for Revenue Excellence Summit, produced by Modern Sales Pros. And it's also my pleasure to have Latané Conant, who is the CRO and, well, former CMO of Sixth Sense. So Latané, tell us about your transition from CMO to CRO and what's that been like over the last year?
I'm going to talk about it in two ways. First of all, a more non-specific way. And that is anytime you make a transition, I think the first year is really challenging. It's probably the time that you grow the most, which is great. But there's also like an emotional roller coaster that I think you go on, and bear with me. I'm gonna tell you about what I call the first year.
Hey.
And so the reality is it takes a year. It takes a year to really make a big impact in a new role with a pretty big scope. And
Yes.
I've done this a bunch of times, but I never realize when I'm in it.
Mm.
And so what I mean is, the first 3 months are kind of manic and you're so excited and you got all these plans and you see all this opportunity and you're solidifying your OKRs or V2 mom or whatever you're gonna do, and you're out getting people motivated and rallied and yay, right? So that's kind of the first 30 days or so. Then you kind of get into the work and it's like not happening fast enough, and you're working your butt off and the team's working your butt off and you're getting all this stuff done, but like nothing's happened.
Hmm. No deals have closed.
Yeah, I mean, it's just in general, right? Like any new initiative, right? You're setting things up, you're doing this, you're doing that. And so you're like, okay, that's fine. We're just getting going. And then at month 6, you're like, okay, we've been doing this a long time. It feels like
Yeah.
you start to get real anxious. And then 9 months, I call the trough of despair,
Oh.
because you're like, I have been working so hard. What is happening? And then it's like the popcorn kernels start to pop, and it's like, oh, there we go. Now that's working. There we go. Now that's working, and so you got to be looking for the kernels.
Yes.
And then at a year, all of a sudden it's like, all right, I'm
Yeah.
not insane.
Well, congratulations to getting to the popped popcorn. But my question to you is, looking back at that year, is there anything you would have changed, or expectations or communications you would have, put out there to your team? Because you can't, time is not your friend when you're in a go-to-market. I mean, it's everything, but it's also not your friend.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I think that knowing what those popcorn kernels are going to be, versus just hoping a kernel pops,
Mm.
it is pretty important. And like, there are some things that, like think about if you have a sales cycle that's a year,
Yes.
you're not going to be able to show, oh, I've had this job 3 months and now I have all these deals, right? So
Right.
what you have to be able to do is start to cohort um, initiatives and then track like either opportunities or customers or whatever it is. So here's a real example. We changed our onboarding process.
Mm.
Now we're not going to know, like some of our accounts are in 2-year contracts, so like we're not going to really know if it worked or didn't work for 2 years. But you can start to cohort and say, okay, for all of the customers that went through the updated onboarding, their health score is X% higher than our
Yes.
average, right? So that's a real example,
Yes.
So being able to show those, I think, cohorts or green shoots is really important to make sure that you know you're on the right track.
Yeah, I think that's such great advice. I think piecing it off, cohorts where you know what the outcomes are likely to be and can report on those and encourage your team to keep going that direction if it's positive, of course.
Yeah, or like we introduced a new bundle of products, and like all the early indicators are amazing around the bundle versus the product suite that we sold before, but we won't know. I mean, we might not know for 3 years, right? Like, but like really, really know, I mean, that's just kind of but you have to have these early indicators, and there's some obvious ones like pipeline, cycle times, ASPs, but back to onboarding, are these customers more ready for onboarding? Are they more successful in onboarding? Is their adoption higher? Is there, you know what I mean? Like, so just looking at like that whole chain.
Right.
To
And all
really
the signals. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the signals from them. Are they using the product? Are the questions dwindling away because they've been properly onboarded? That's interesting. I think that's great advice for anybody who is in enterprise sales specifically, because it is such a long journey. But I wanted to kind of switch the questions to, based on what you know and don't know, something called the dark funnel, which is a very popular concept that you've actually brought to light for the rest of the market. Can you tell us about what the dark funnel means and how that came about at Sixth Sense as a moniker?
Yeah. So actually, the CMO before me thought of it, and it's genius, right? So it's the fact that we all know that a lot of the sales cycle is happening without us. And in fact, we just launched our B2B buying survey for the second big year in a row, and reinforces a lot of things that we know about buying teams being large, most of the cycle being anonymous. To me, the mind-blowing stat in there is it's not just that the cycle is happening. What this research this year showed is it's done. So 85% of the time, they've actually picked the winner.
Really?
Before they
not one or three possibilities. That's a big shift, actually.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you do about that then? If they've already picked the winner, I mean, how does that change the dynamics of, because you also manage marketing, sales and marketing?
Yeah. So the other thing so anyway, back to the dark funnel. So the dark funnel is all this stuff that's happening across all these people, across all these channels, and stuff's happening, but you're in the dark. It's definitely not in your CRM. It's definitely not in Gong. It's definitely not right in front of you. And how do you shed as much light on that as possible? So, I do think step one still, even, with this new research, is you got to uncover the dark funnel, right? You need to know that activity is happening. And I think just amassing different types of signals to understand that activity is happening is really critical. Another thing the research showed, though, is like, you really can't like harass your way in.
Right.
So, one of the things that we do, Alison, as you know, is to be able to say, like, where are they in their journey? And so it's not like you can just wait till they're ready to buy and pounce. We had this whole concept of in market and the 6QA and like, pounce then, you know what I mean? Like, don't wait for the inbound, pounce then. And I'm not saying, again, I think we should still do that, but actually more investment and focus on those earlier buying stages, because maybe even once they're in market is too late. So, and it's less about like that and more about what you do and how you do it. And so being able to have that data should help you actually be better about what you do and how you do it. And the other thing that the research said was, they don't want to talk to sales, but
Yeah,
70% said that they would talk to like anybody else at your company.
Oh, I'm sorry, salespeople. No one wants to talk to you.
I know, but again, what does that mean for how we think about, building like one of the things that we've done, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
Yes.
But we've always like done a lot of peer to peer. So like if, I reach out to the CMO and now the CRO within our customers and our prospects and create relationships at that peer to peer level. So I think everyone needs to think about a strategy like that. If you
Yes.
sell HR software, your CHRO probably needs to be kind of part of the sales team. So I think the implication is really for broader executive teams on how, it's not just a sales job, it's all of our jobs. And then I think also, what are the SMEs that you invest in? Think about SCs. Like, are they more creating videos and doing things and connecting? And so it's sort of like, how do you surround and create that SME group that helps nurture through that cycle, and then orchestrating that in like a very compelling way?
Yeah, I would agree. And I think it's even more complicated now. You referenced this earlier with all of the different buying groups, especially in a long sales cycle where you have multiple stakeholders. And so this, peer-to-peer selling is so important because you're influencing so many people at that company. You don't really, I think still part of the dark funnel is understanding how decisions are made at your prospect. So I would love to, one of the things I think would be so helpful for anyone who's out selling or marketing is to maybe get a glimpse of how would you orchestrate this? If you're assuming that your prospects have not yet made up their minds and they're early in the buying cycle, from a sixth sense perspective, how do you know they're starting to move that direction? And then rather than pounce, what would be the motion that you would orchestrate? And what would that look like by the time, you're sort of entering consideration, even decision? From a funnel metric standpoint.
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? Is like, you can't just throw a bunch of stuff out there and hope it sticks at the right time. So knowing that timing is critical. Okay. But then, one of the things when we think about like where we're going as a company is the orchestration of that.
Right.
And, generative AI is kind of a game changer to be able to say, I want something from Latané's agent to reach out at this time and say this or that. So like, using like AI agents to be able to help scale that more personal conversation is a big part of something that we're doing. Understanding not just like where they are in the journey, but who is on the buying team. And then, I joke to my kids, I'm a like kind of highly paid party planner. I love a good field marketing event, right? So these are the accounts, this is where they are in the journey. These are their CROs, and this is where they're located. Field marketing alert, we need to do a dinner in Boston.
Yeah, got it.
So it's like, how do we, through that, but not just any dinner, not just like, oh, we should do a dinner series. It's like, okay, where, why, how, what?
But how early is that, Latané? Like, is this something, if I'm imagining what this might look like on a whiteboard, is this sort of the early stage? Okay, let's start to, give them a few glasses of wine and see what happens. And then, is it?
Yeah, but it's that thought leadership. It's like, hey, let's do, a breakfast and a breakfast briefing, or, I do a lot of like blitzes where I'll go to a city and just 30, pick a cool spot, the Chelsea Hotel or a Soho house or something, and just, say, hey, let's meet, let's get to know one another, and just like kind of line them up. But knowing where to do our blitz and our locations and who to invite to them has been kind of a game changer, because before, how many of you guys have done this scramble where you're like, we should do a road show. Sales, fill this spreadsheet out and tell us who to invite. And can you get your invites out, please? And it's like,
it's not considered. It's not planned. It's so random, right? And
it's like, it's not about the dinner location. No. We can all book a cool dinner location or whatever. You know what I mean? It's about who.
Yes.
And making sure it's like that curated audience. So that's a big thing that we're doing, and we're actually using our software now to do that.
And I imagine, underlying, is this, you've already decided who are the best buyers for 6th Sense at this point. So it's having that, and I'm just trying to break this down for the audience. Right? Target account and saying, okay, let's follow these guys until, the time is ready to have a field event or to do something more serious. And I would wholeheartedly agree with you. I think, I've seen the same thing. Nobody wants to talk to sales, but they'll do a product tour, or they'll, have a dinner with you or me or someone. So there's something else that I was curious about, Latané. You had mentioned this earlier when we were talking, is, the sort of the conditions of potential buyers, whether it's contacts, whether it's the accounts themselves. We work really hard to woo them and bring them in, whether it's inbound or outbound. And you mentioned this concept called the dead zone, which is a new concept that you're going to be talking about, I imagine, for months to come. Can you talk, what is the dead zone and what do you do about that?
Yeah, so, I take this new job on and I'm like, okay, I'm a consultant, I'm an ex-consultant, so everything's got to have a framework, right? So I'm like, okay, what is our, how do we create revenue? And everyone's got their own framework, right? So we put together this framework, and it's the first pillar is understand your market, chief market officer, and that's ICP and all that stuff. What's your revenue strategy, right? So product market fit and segmentation and territory design, all that. Then there's create demand, which is the classic marketing stuff that we were talking about earlier. Like, where are they? Let's get it. Let's bring them along. Then there's capture demand. I'm going to pause. And now I'll go back to capture demand. Then there's manage opportunities, which is that's your med pick and your placemat, your sales process. And then there's grow customers, and that's all the, the customer journey and whatever. And CS pretty much thinks they're the grow customers, right?
Right.
Sales thinks that they manage opportunities. Marketing thinks they create demand. Capture demand, nobody owns. And if nobody owns it, it becomes a dead zone.
Okay. So capture demand, like define, what are the 3 things someone who is supposed to capture demand should be doing, or a team?
I'm just going to give you guys some examples. That's going to make your skin crawl. Okay.
Okay, great. I don't know.
Inbound comes in. Your SLA ours was 6 minutes, 6 cents, 6 minutes.
Love it.
Yeah. So that makes me feel good. We've got this awesome SLA. Only 57% of the time we met the SLA though.
Oops.
You know what I mean? So I bet your inbounds are not getting worked within 6 minutes.
Or at all.
Let's say you have invested in uncovering your dark funnel and understanding, intent data. And you've got all kinds of intent data saying this account is is ready to go. Like maybe it's G2 and 6sense and all these things saying they're researching you and your competitors and blah, blah, blah.
What do you do with that?
Anything.
What do you do with that?
It's like a tree falls in the woods, you know?
Okay. And there's one more crisis that's happening around that.
I mean, how many of us have spent a couple $100,000 on the trade show and the booth that everybody said, this is it. This is the one. It's so important. We got to get face to face. You spend all this time and energy and you're giving out squishy balls and the whole 9 yards. And then, we sent one email. Another one. I'm on a roll now.
Okay, good.
I pull a list every week of stage ones. We've had a demo with them that have not been followed up with for 14 days.
Why is this the case? What's happening? Like, what I know, and is there an elixir?
It's terrible.
Everything you've said is like, does make my skin crawl. Like I actually, you spend millions of dollars on paid ads and they just sit there in a pile. There's one conversation, or they've been disqualified and maybe, why are they disqualified? Oh, actually, it's just they said they're not ready to buy. Oh, okay. Now or ever?
Yeah.
I mean, which is it? But Latané, what do we do about this? I mean, this is just this, like, it is a dead zone. No one seems to, and capturing demand, it's like, we need you to get here so we can sell to you, but they don't want to be sold to. They don't want to talk to sales. So what do we do? What's the elixir?
Yeah, well, what we've been doing is, I think this is like a huge opportunity for generative AI.
Okay.
And so we have been training our agents to be the capture.
But how does that work exactly? I mean, how?
So I'll walk you through those same use cases.
Okay.
And it's not just us, it's our customers too. So you do your demo request, you enter in just one or two things, smart form fill fills out all the other fields so that, we don't have to have a 50 field form.
Yes.
Goes to the AI agent, researches, your company, has all the data there about your company, has what you wrote on your email, knows your persona, responds, hey, yeah, let's get this thing booked. What times work for you? It knows how to do time and calculate and this and that. It doesn't just follow up once. It follows up the appropriate amount of time. And then loops in sales when you get a meeting.
Wow. Is this stage one to get to stage one, or is this after you've had
this is to get to stage one. This is that, it's funny. I requested a demo recently and it took them like a day and a half to respond.
Wow.
And it was fine. I was interested in getting it scheduled and this and that. But like, what if I just moved on to the next guy? And I'm like, you know what? I'm just like, I don't know. That kills me. Like there's no time.
It does. But then, so I love that. I think that's such a great use for Gen AI, just taking kind of that, the working part out of getting somebody scheduled. But after that, we still sometimes have these dead zones, right? Or they go back into the dark funnel. We don't know what happened to them, and so where are you, when you think about these types of signals, whether it's nothing, that's a signal, or whether they've gone back and they're sort of back looking at competitors, how do you manage that? I mean, what is the advice that you might give to both, now that you're marketing sales, you're managing the sales and marketing? How would you reorchestrate that sort of, we showed up, now we're out, to create demand?
Yeah, I think that you have to have like automation, right? So you have to be able to like have, okay, this is the signal, and this is the journey. You need to be able to chart the journey and be able to orchestrate the right touches at the right time. And this really wasn't possible before, but I think now that platforms are advancing and platforms are becoming more integrated, and able to think about an account, a persona, and then an actual contact and bringing those together, it's getting really interesting. So, okay, maybe they are back in the dark funnel. Maybe we send a gift.
Yeah.
So, things like that. Or maybe we need more multi-threading, and so my AI agent reaches out, or the marketing ops AI agent reaches out. So it's like we have these like persona based agents that help kind of curate that journey.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think there's a new world with Gen AI and what we can design.
That's really, I find that so fascinating. And, those of us who have lived through just manually orchestrating this process and thinking through, well, what can we do now to re-engage or engage this buyer? I imagine that by using Gen AI for this process, you would also have within a year, so we have to give ourselves a year, a swath of data to say this orchestration pattern worked really well for this type of company versus another company where maybe we should have started higher or even lower on the food chain because this person has a terrible job and we need to help them. There are all sorts of factors you might want to consider. How are you thinking about measuring the impact of your Gen AI in these types of orchestrations?
Yeah, so what we do is we actually bring all of the deals that we've won back into 6sense, and then look at the journey, and we do it by segment. So I can see a commercial account that we won visits the website this many times, engages with these campaigns, has these personas involved. And so to me, it's like going back and if you know what worked, then you can start to choreograph success over and over and over again. And so that's been really effective for us. It also lets us know what does it take? Is it one email? Are we being stalky, or is this just what it takes? Right. And because there's always that difference. It doesn't feel like it should be 45 emails. That seems cray. Right. Yes. But 2 seems like maybe not enough. So, is it 12? What is that magic number that gets us in the sweet spot? So we do a lot of post analysis of the journey.
And would that include also sort of post sale all the way through, customer success, upsell, resell, expansion? You're looking at the full journey end to end for these accounts?
Oh, I probably spend most of my time now on the actual customer journey. That's sort of where I've been living and breathing more, and understanding how to prescribe a journey for customers.
Yeah.
And I think it just depends on the kind of solution that you sell. But in our world, the kind of solution we sell, customers look to us to prescribe,
which is what you're doing with your Gen AI practice. I imagine that's going to be enormously helpful to your customers, so they're not guessing, well, what's going to work when I'm using 6sense? How do I even set this up?
Exactly.
That's exciting. And I imagine too, just, the data that you would have just generally for the market to be able to share at some point, anonymized, of course, but what works for commercial, what works for enterprise. That's so fascinating. So, just to kind of round out our conversation, what are you looking forward to in 2025? What are some of your big goals from a sales perspective? And, how will you work with marketing now that that's not your main job, to execute on those?
Yeah, So for me personally, um, I feel like I have a new operating rhythm that I'm comfortable in. And that took a while. And what I mean is like, whatever your role on the revenue team is, you need to know kind of the rhythm of the business, right? And so if you're in marketing, you know, these are the peak pipe gen periods. These are the times when no one's doing anything. It's probably a little bit of a lull. This is when our big conference is. It's going to be manic. You know, don't plan your vacation around that. So I sort of had in my mind like the year, right? And then you layer on customer success. Well, they have a very different year, and kind of end of quarter cadence that's actually different than sales, which the end of quarter cadence with sales is extremely rare, real.
Yeah.
You know, and you layer on all these different functions, and I had to kind of figure out what is my rhythm to manage all of this. And so I talk a lot about like winning the week. And so that's a concept that we have here. Our enablement team has helped like how do you in your role win the week? Like what do you need to actually do every single week to get it done and be successful in your job? And so for me, winning the week looks like Monday is Monday marathon of metrics. So it's like literally 9 hours. I go through every single function, all their core KPIs, how they're tracking. Tuesday is all about alignment. So I've got the e-staff call, I got my team call, one-on-ones. Wednesday and Thursday, like I want to get out, I want to see customers, those type of things. Friday is like inspection.
Yeah.
And you know, did we, you know, who's falling behind, slipped deals, like those type of things. And then Saturday is like, you know, create anything I need to actually like do deep work or review. And so just having that rhythm, I think, is really important, because otherwise you can just kind of run around and weeks turns into months and into quarters.
Yeah, I love that, Latané. I think that's, you know, you have a lot on your plate, and I think, you know, as someone who's mainly working in marketing, you know, it's so easy to fall into, I've got to do things, random acts of marketing. If I'm busy, it must be working somehow. And so having a bit of a framework to, one, assess, and two, talk to your team, and then three, you know, speak to customers, get that field input so that you feel good about the direction you're going at least, and then do the deep work when you have nobody slacking you or calling you. I think that's a great practice.
Yeah. And I think like the marketing and sales, I don't want to say divide, but the difference and what we can learn from each other is sales has a constant, like immediate need.
Yes.
Right. Like this needs to happen today, this week, this quarter. Like there's no tomorrow, right? It's today. It's a very like urgent need. Marketing tends to think more long term. Like we're already planning breakthrough for next year. It just happened. Right. And so there can be less urgency, right? And sales, there's supreme urgency and maybe not the long term. Like how do we invest in a large accounts program that's going to pay off in, you know, maybe 2 years because we got to hire the team, work the accounts, blah, 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 blah. So there's like this long-term thinking that sometimes it's harder to do on the sales side. And so I think they can learn from marketing in that regard. And then marketing has to learn from sales that like, no, weeks can't go by without producing,
Yes.
You know? So one of the things we've changed is now, just like we have a sales forecast call, we have a pipeline forecast call, and, you know, every like kind of channel gets on and calls the week.
Yeah. Interesting. And and do you think that reality is changing how your teams are performing? Are they more sympathetic or empathetic to each other's situations? Are you seeing a difference, or is that still a work in progress? Because I imagine we all know there's you've really nailed actually what goes on and why things feel slow or too urgent but are you
eye-opening for both.
really?
See. Yeah. And like I read this book called Team of Teams. Shafet at Optimizely gave it to me, and it talks about shared consciousness. And I'm like, we need to have a shared consciousness of like everything that's happening in our business. And then if we all have that same shared consciousness, y'all are awesome leaders and you're smart and you'll figure it out. And so that's a lot of like what I try to create, especially on that marathon Monday. It's like the shared, like, where really are we?
Yes. And I think that's one thing, and this is going back to like old world, 10 years ago, our ABM strategy, when it first emerged, the idea of that, of us all working on the accounts and saying, looking at a board and saying, check, check, check. We got these guys. That was the dream. But the reality is there's so many pieces coming through. There's inbound, there's outbound, and it's so complex. So I think it's great that you're trying to get this collective consciousness going, because we need to go back to that same idea of working in tandem. Customer success, marketing, sales, we're all part of a go-to-market team. We're all trying to get pipeline and win.
Yep. Exactly.
So we are, a few minutes out from the end of this amazing conversation with you. And I wanted to see, what would you like to leave the audience with? What is something inspirational that they can take away besides this, about 50 other things you've already said? What are some parting thoughts to them?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're thinking about a new role, do it. And just embrace a challenge. I think that we're in a time of a lot of change. And so we all have to lead through that change. And so just, be open with that and have confidence that you'll kind of get through it.
Yeah. It's important. I think the market is well, we don't really know, it's kind of good and kind of bad at the same time. There's a lot of change with AI and a lot of uncertainty. And I think the thing that I'm really impressed with is your ability to capture the opportunity and try to use it in your business. When you say take a role on that, if you want a new role, are you talking about somebody moving, for example, from, back to our first part of our conversation, from a chief market officer to a chief revenue officer, or is it carving out an initiative at your company? What are you thinking?
It's any and all of that. I mean, it's been really fun. Probably the highlight of the last year is, I've gotten to see these complete superstars that maybe were not in the leadership role that they deserved or didn't have the visibility that they deserved, and got to work on like special projects with them and kind of get them elevated or move people into different roles that they never thought, like, why would I do that? And so I think that what I found is my career has been a real portfolio of different things. And I think that's given me like a rounding that is unique. And so I would say, don't be afraid to like say yes. Because I think, again, there's a lot of like, there's so much change, but that's like the opportunity.
Yeah, huge. Agree. Not everybody's good with change. You're going to always have team members who are like, who moved my furniture? I don't know. And then you have the ones who are like, this is awesome. Let's forge on. So, well, I think, we've kind of come to the end of our conversation, Latané, and I, just such a pleasure to have a second to sit down with you and hear what you're working on. And thank you for sharing your practices and also, what you're looking forward to in 2025.
Yeah. All right. Awesome, Allison. Thanks, Modern Sales Pro.
And thank you, audience. More to come, and let us know if you have any questions or feedback. We'd love to hear from you.